feedback on my last gameplay video on Tabletop Simulator was surprisingly good, so I thought I'd do another one. This time we're going to be playing with Darius, again versus a set player. This is the same player we played against last time, but there's not as much cheating this time around. I opt for Altar of Unity as my first battlefield, and I mulligan Vi and Darius Executioner going into my turn 1. I only have 2 legal plays, the Soaring Scout and the Legion Rearguard. We can get some accelerate value out of Legion Rearguard in the future, so I opt for the Soaring Scout. The opponent plays Cythria and passes. I take a point for Conquer on Altar of Unity, and I follow up with a Faithful Manufacturer, and then I tap a rune plus the Darius to play a Noxus Hopeful. I do make an embarrassing mistake here by putting the Noxus Hopeful onto the Altar to Unity. This was unnecessary. I could have just played it to base, and now if the opponent plays Set plus Showstopper, a combo that had only really been used against me once before this, my units would be killed for free. On my opponent's next turn, they play Set and Showstopper, the combo that I should have been significantly more scared about, and I could have easily played around but chose not to. My opponent crushes my units at Altar to Unity, and Cythria moves to Reaver's Row, taking 2 points. A good start to the game for the opponent. I'm pretty sad going into my next turn, but I move Faithful Manufacturer to trade with the Cythria, then I simply move the Recruit for the Conquer point. Then I go for a Legion Rearguard Accelerated, plus a Darius signature spell to kill off Set. The opponent saves the Set using the Legend ability from the buff that they generated from the signature Showstopper ability, but I get exactly what I wanted, the Conquer point at the Altar to Unity, and then I pass to the opponent. Opponent pushes the saved Set to capture the point back from me, and the opponent then readies Set using First Mate and returns him to base for safety. I take the hold point, and I do a fairly passive turn, simply developing Darius Executioner plus a Noxus Hopeful in my base to set up for a future turn. The opponent then moves their Set to Altar to Unity. Once the opponent arrives, they cast a challenge to target my Darius that we played the turn prior, which was a pretty sad moment for us, but it is what it is. Then they move the First Mate to the Reaver's Row, forcing me to retreat out and collecting their 5th point. We top deck a Harnessed Dragon, which I'm fairly happy about at this point, even though the Set's not going to die. It forces them out of the Altar of Unity, so we use the Harnessed Dragon, and then we push our Recruit to get a Conquer point, and then we push our Noxus Hopeful to Reaver's Row. Once we arrive there, our opponent casts Hidden Blade on their own First Mate to draw 2 cards. The score is now 6-5, and the opponent goes into their turn with 5 up and a Set in their base. They push Set to Reaver's Row, and I take the retreat. Opponent follows up with a Soaring Scout and a First Mate, readying the Scout and pushing it to trade with my Recruit, denying me the hold point. I thought this was actually a pretty heads-up play from the opponent. Obviously, in this particular game state, it doesn't really matter too much, but still a cool play regardless. You might notice some movement happening here. This is just because the opponent intended to play their First Mate at Reaver's Row, and they corrected it because they accidentally put it in the base. I start my turn by moving Noxus Hopeful to Altar of Unity, or Altar to Unity I should say, for the 7th point of the game, and then I play Faithful Manufacturer and Darius to ready Darius, giving him +2 might, and then pushing him and Harnessed Dragon to Reaver's Row and closing out game 1 because the opponent did not have a response. Then we get to move on to game 2, where I select Trifarian Warcamp as my battlefield and my opponent chooses Targons. They choose to go second, and I mulligan Dangerous Duo and Vi. Both are fairly contextually powerful and can be really impactful on any particular game state, but at this point I'm looking for units that are going to be consistent in the early stages of the game. We find Cull and Vanguard Captain, 2 mulligans I'm pretty happy with there, and for turn we draw Vi, which I'm quite thankful for because she ends up performing really well over the course of this game. I jam a Soaring Scout on turn 1 and pass, the opponent jams a Cythria and passes. I move my Scout to get a Conquer point, and then I cast Cull the Weak to slow down the opponent's tempo while I gather up my forces. I also follow up with a Noxus Hopeful. I pass to the opponent, who jams their Set, which plays perfectly into my hand because now on my turn, I move my Noxus Hopeful to Targon's Peak, primarily for the point. I then play Vi and use Darius's ability for the 6th energy to cast Darius' signature spell to kill the enemy Set right from their base. This puts the opponent super far behind, so we're really happy with the current game state. You'll notice that I collect an extra rune here. This is just because I forgot to collect a rune earlier when the Soaring Scout died, and someone who was watching the game reminded me that I never got my rune from the Soaring Scout, so we just let me collect that rune because I should already have it. My opponent takes a turn to set up their board, developing 2 Cythria, and then passes. I have to feel really good about this because that's a huge passive turn from the opponent. Considering the current game state, it's looking really good for me. I take my hold point and I retreat my Noxus Hopeful, pushing Vi to Trifarian Warcamp and developing a Vanguard Captain, 2 recruits, a Dangerous Duo, all in my base set up for a big swing next turn. I actually expected this to be the end of Vi, which I was okay with, I just wanted the point. But I think my opponent was scared of this, thought it was some type of bait or something, so they actually choose to play into Targons, developing a hidden card to protect their cards and a Misfortune in their base. I take a point for hold, and then I suspect my opponent's hidden card is Hidden Blade, and I wanted to get it out of the way. So I use Vi's effect 3 times, and then I gank over to Targon's, again expecting this to be the end of Vi. But my opponent uses Hidden Blade on their own card to draw 2 cards, and before passing, I move up a recruit to the Trifarian Warcamp because it's a low commitment, and sometimes it's going to score a hold point for us, and I also develop a Legion Rearguard and play a Scrapyard Champion to draw 2 cards. Keeping in mind that, of course, I don't have the cards in hand to discard for Scrapyard Champion's effect, so I simply just get to draw 2. The opponent goes for a Dead Bloom Predator on Targon's, cleaning up that battlefield. I'm completely okay with that, that's whatever. And then the opponent tries to move their Misfortune to Trifarian Warcamp, where I cast Shen to defend my recruit. Shen does exactly what he was intended to do. He protects that recruit and trades with the Misfortune. Opponent then passes, and I take a hold point. I simply close out the game by playing another Shen from hand and a Darius champion, utilizing the Darius Legend effect to get exactly how much energy I needed, meaning that the Darius gets to enter ready, and I push everything to Targon's Peak to close out game 2 with a 25 might push. Darius actually feels crazy strong. Let me know what you thought of this set. This is a much shorter set than the last one, so let me know what you want to see next from these types of videos. Thank you so much for watching, keep being awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one.